Now 12 years old, Ororo felt the irresistible urge to wander southwards. And with her teacher Achmed el-gibar's blessing, 12-year-old Ororo was ready for the journey to her mother's kingdom and her ancestral land of Kenya. Before she left, Achmed gave her his finest knife for protection, reminded her to find his friend near Ethiopia, and reminded her to never forget his trainings. For Achmed had not only trained Ororo to be an expert thief, but he had also taught her the arts of hand-to-hand combat. And so, just like her mother, Princess Nader, Ororo left her village and her adoptive father and family in search of something greater. When she left Cairo, Ororo headed straight south on foot, following the path of the highway that runs behind the Nile near Khartoum. Over the next 18 days, she had traveled nearly 2,200 miles, making her way into Sudan, resting in the nearby villages along her way. On the 19th day of her trek, Ororo's young body began to become fatigued. Her feet were sore, and she was worn down from the sun and the heat. A man passing by in a truck notices Ororo struggling to walk. He also notices her white hair, blue eyes, and her mature body. He offers her a ride. Young and naive, Ororo gets in his truck. Almost immediately he forces himself upon her. He tries to touch her face, then her legs. When Ororo refuses, he pulls the truck over and tries to take off her clothing. When Ororo continues to refuse, the man strikes her in the face. They begin to struggle fiercely, and the man begins to rip and tear at Ororo's clothing. Fraught, Ororo grabs Achmed's knife from her belt, and she stabs the man in the gut. As he dies, he and Ororo fall out of the door of the truck, and Ororo escapes. The event traumatizes Ororo. His death reminds her of the deaths of her parents, and she swears to never take another human life. 2 weeks later, Ororo has been drawn over 1,600 more miles southeast into the villages just outside of Ethiopia. While walking across the desert on one summer day, Ororo's mind is consumed. She fixates on the death of her parents, being an orphan, training hard with Achmed, and the prophecy of Ozymandias, and now, the man in the truck. She's lost in thought when she notices that she can suddenly sense electrical activity building in the sky just above her. Storm clouds gather, darken, crackle and thunder. And with every pulse of thunder, she can feel the elemental energies tingling in her temples and down her spine. With a blink, she can see the elemental spectrum of the storm, almost like a tangible tapestry weaved just for her. Seeing the spectrum of the storm surprises her, and the storm responds to her surprise with lightning. The elemental pressures of the eye of the storm begin to bear her down. And as she struggles to move, she can hear screaming inside her mind, but it is not her own. Is the storm screaming, she thinks? Can't she hear the pain of the skies? She reaches out her hand, extends her will, somehow controlling and calming the storm. And as the storm dissipates, the screaming turns into singing in Ororo's mind, and the skies are clear and blue again. For what feels like hours, Ororo rests, exhausted. When she awakes, for a moment, she is excited about what she had done. That excitement turns to fear, and Ororo begins to wonder how she's able to control a storm. Is this what Ozymandias predicted? Was she cursed? Her travels eventually lead her to the camp of a man named Teacher, the friend of Achmed el-gibar, who ran his own group of child thieves in the woods outside a small Ethiopian village high upon a hill. And what was supposed to be a single night of rest for Ororo turns into 4 years. Now Ororo is 16 and in another land, and she still feels alienated and alone. For although her urchin brothers adore her, her urchin sisters ridicule her for her mixed American and African heritage. They believe she lies about her mother being a Kenyan princess, and they despise the American blood of her father coursing through her veins. Ororo spends most of her time alone now. The winds had begun to follow her almost everywhere since that day in the desert, and sometimes when she is afraid, fog appears. When she cries, it rains. When she is angry, there is thunder. And when she is surprised or startled, lightning. Ororo does not understand why the gods hate her, and she is convinced that she is cursed by the devil. And atop of all the other changes Ororo has been experiencing, she is now going through the changes of womanhood, and her body feels alien to her. And now, secretly, Ororo yearns for companionship and love. She desires to touch, but inside, desire turns to fear. Fear of getting close, fear of finding love and losing it again. Ororo continues to perfect her lockpicking skills under Teacher's stern tutelage. He knows of her reputation from Achmed, and he sees strength in Ororo, but he is not as easily impressed. He thinks her skills are moderate, just like Achmed's. And he makes Ororo practice lockpicking daily. Teacher wants her to have discipline and patience. Teacher is certain that with the right training, Ororo could be a better thief than both Achmed and himself. And most importantly, he helps her hide the secrets of her burgeoning powers.